Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and today we're going to be talking about your ultimate guide to audiobooks. I started listening to audiobooks last year when I had to commute to school. It was like a 40-minute drive up to an hour, hour and a half, depending on the day because it's Los Angeles. But I used that time to like read even more books than I normally would because I got to listen to audiobooks. And I was thinking, like, let's talk about audiobooks because I feel like they're kind of slept on. It's such like an easy way to get more reading in if you are somebody who likes to read and wants to hit a reading goal or just like wants a different format of reading. I like to have different ways of reading. Like I like to read on my Kindle sometimes a physical copy of a book, and sometimes an audiobook. And it's just like a good option, especially if it's a book that you can't really get into by reading it with your eyes. I'm going to be talking about like tips and tricks that have kind of worked for me. It might work for you, it might not, of like how to get into an audiobook and how to kind of find ones that you like and how to find the right one, just how to read more books with audiobooks. So let's get into it. I use Audible, which is $14.95 a month, I believe. It's great. It's a little expensive in the scheme of things, but I know that Libby is also an option if you want that. I just know that a lot of things aren't available all the time because Libby, you have to like use a library card or you have to like put an audiobook on hold and like wait weeks until it's available. I haven't really figured that out yet. So I'm using Audible because that's just what I got initially and that's what I still have. The thing with Audible is like you get 1 credit a month with that. You can always add more credits by buying more, but you also get to return books back that you haven't finished or that you don't really like. So I love the option to be non-committal. I love the ability to be able to like return some books if I've listened to them for a few hours and I still don't like them. They also offer samples, so like it'll give you about 5 minutes in the beginning of the audiobook so that you can like hear the voices. I like that option because some narrators just like are earblood to me. Like I hate some voices, and it's so good to be able to like hear the voice ahead of time before you decide to use a credit on it. Even if you do, even if you've like listened to it for a couple hours and you still don't like it, you still have an option to return the audiobook. There are some like rules and restrictions about how many returns you can have, but I've never really had a problem with returning. I love that option. It's kind of non-committal and you get a credit each month, and you can kind of stack up your credits if you don't use them. So I love audiobooks for many reasons. Some obvious ones are that you can read them on the go. You can like do other things while you're reading them. You can like do your chores around your house. I hate folding laundry, and I feel like it's a really good thing to use when I'm doing chores around the house and don't want to listen to my own thoughts and I'm like sick of YouTube. Audiobooks are a really great option. Or if you're driving long road trips, or on your walks. I love going on long walks with Jasper and putting an audiobook in because I feel like that's a really good way for me to focus on it. So it's a really great way of getting more reading in as opposed to like you have to, with reading with your eyes, you have to like sit down, open the book and look at it, and you can't really do anything else while you're doing that. So I feel like audiobooks are a really good way if you are a busy gal and just need like something to listen to while you're doing it. I feel like audiobooks are really helpful to get into dense books that you might be struggling with if you're reading it with your eyes. I'm gonna go like reading with your eyes versus reading with your ears. Reading with your eyes, if there's like a dense fantasy book or just like a dense book, a biography, it's sometimes so helpful to have an audiobook that you can listen to and have someone read it to you, because I find it so much easier to get into it when somebody's reading it to me as opposed to me forcing myself through like the thick of the world building in the beginning. That's why I find audiobooks really helpful for fantasy. Thrillers are my favorite. If you get a really good narrator, it is so suspenseful, so fun to listen to, and I'm going to tell you some recommendations that I have for some of my favorite audiobooks. I'm going to tell you all of the audiobooks I've listened to, and I'm going to tell you my favorites, but most of them are thrillers because I have found really amazing narrators that have just made the audiobook so suspenseful and so fun. I don't personally love romance on audiobook. That's just me. I don't know why. I think it's because if something like smutty happens and I'm like taking a walk around the neighborhood, I'm gonna be like, I want to go home. Please no one look at me. Because if I have this smut going on in my ears, I'm like, so romance novels are not really for me. I've tried a few and they're like, they're okay. They're not my favorite. I usually stick to thrillers or fantasy books on audio. I know that a lot of people listen to biographies or autobiographies on there. I've heard great things about Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights and Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, because they're narrated by them. And I really like that they did their own audiobooks. So those are really good options too if you're more of a nonfiction person. This is a caveat here that audiobooks do go a little bit slower than reading with your eyes, but I do find that you get so much more reading done because you don't have to, like I said, sit down and like open a book and read it. And if you get like both an audiobook and the physical book and you kind of trade off, it can help you finish the book faster. So it just gives you more options. For me, I like to have 2 to 3 books going on at a time. So I'm listening to one, I'm reading one, and maybe like a physical copy and maybe one on my Kindle. If I'm doing 3, that's really crazy. So one time I got up to 4 and I was like, this is insane. But I like having a different option of reading a book. So I'm going to talk to you about every single book I've listened to. There's only 12 thus far. I've only really been reading for the past year. So I've only really listened to 12 audiobooks up to date. I have listened to a lot of half audiobooks, which I won't be including here. So I'm not going to count those except for one that I got really close to finishing. I'll explain why. I'm counting that one because I listened to most of it and it was brutal. So I'm going to walk you through all of the audiobooks I've listened to, what I thought about them from like an audiobook standpoint, and then I'm going to tell you my favorites. I'm going to tell you some of my favorite narrators so you can look out for other things they might have narrated. And then we'll wrap it up. Every book I've ever listened to. I'm looking at my notes. The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This won a Goodreads award, I think, in the year that it came out. I didn't love the audiobook, but I don't know if that was really the narrator as much as it was the book for me. I found it to be kind of like not very suspenseful. I feel like it didn't really go anywhere for me, but it was a good story to listen to overall. I think I'd give it like a 3 stars. The next one is Verity by Colleen Hoover. We're going to talk about this one later because it is one of my favorites. It was spectacular. So I listened to this next audiobook because one of the narrators from Verity also did this book, but it's called Every Last Secret by A.R. Torrey. It was okay. It was fine. Again, I don't know how much I like the book, but the narrators were great. It's really good to kind of like look at a narrator that you really like, find one that you like, and see what else they've narrated. So this one was like decent. I don't know. I might have given it a 3 or a 4. The next one I listened to was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It's the first of a really long series, I believe. I haven't gone past the first one. I think I might listen to the other ones at some point or read them at some point, but I wasn't invested enough to keep going, but I did really enjoy the audiobook. This was like kind of my gateway into listening to fantasy because there was some world building and it was like, it's kind of a fantasy romance. It really helped me like get into the book when the book got a little dull from the world building. The next book I listened to was The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This is a thriller. If you haven't heard of Freida McFadden, she's a very popular thriller writer. The Housemaid is really her most popular book, and so I listened to this one and I really enjoyed this audiobook. Yeah, it was one of my favorites. The next book I listened to was One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was one of the only, I don't even know if it's a romance technically, but it's more of a literary fiction with some like romance elements. But I really enjoyed this book. I cried like the whole time, and this wasn't really that helpful when I was driving to school and like was on the verge of tears listening to this book, but it was really moving. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid and I really enjoyed that audiobook too. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was a really popular book, I guess. Is it 2022? That this was, or was it now? Is it 2023? I have no idea. This book came out recently and it got such rave reviews. The audiobook killed my soul. I found the narrator to be so monotone and I got through maybe like a little over halfway and I had to DNF it because it was so excruciating. I'm sure the story was really good. It seemed really good, but like the narrator just obliterated the story. I'm being dramatic, but like it felt dramatic. I couldn't even like listen to it anymore because it was so dull. So I DNF'd that one, but I got so far through it that I am counting it in this. The next one I listened to was The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. This is the second one to The Housemaid. I could not tell you one single thing about this book. I do not remember it. And if I don't remember a single thing about this book, that means I didn't really probably like it very much. But I gave it a good rating, so it entertained me for the time being. I then listened to 2 more Frida McFadden books because I became obsessed with just like the fast-pacedness of her writing. I listened to The Inmate and then Never Lie. The Inmate was pretty good. I enjoyed it. She got me. Never Lie, she really got me. Like when the twist happened, I got chills. I was like, what? And so that one's a really fast book. So if you want something really quick, intense, and fun, Never Lie is the one for you. It's one of my favorites by her. The next one I listened to was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is Riley Sager's newest thriller book. He's a pretty popular thriller author, and he came out with this book this year. I don't know. Something about this one kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if it was the story or the narrator or a little bit of both, but I just did not like this one. Oh, there's another one I listened to that wasn't on the list. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Why isn't it on this list? I also listened to Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. That one again, I don't know. It was fine. I don't know if I just don't love Riley Sager's writing or if I don't like it in audiobook form, because I really enjoyed The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. These are also great options if you kind of want to get into his writing. The audiobooks are okay. They're fine. They're decent. They're decent enough where I went to go get another one. And then the last one I've listened to is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This book I tried in every single format so many times, and I finally forced myself to listen to it, and I'm so glad that I did because now I'm like deep in Asimov, the second one. That's the one I'm currently listening to. The audiobook is like good, fine, narrator's decent, but if you feel like you're struggling to get through that book, I recommend listening to it because it's a little bit easier to listen to. Another hot tip is that if you find that the narrator talks slowly, you can adjust the speed to like 1.25 and it sounds just right. So that was the case with A Court of Thorns and Roses. I needed to go a little bit faster, and you also like get through it a little bit faster. But if you're finding yourself struggling with that book or any other kind of fantasy that has a lot of world building or it just gets like dull in the middle, listening to it really helps. Currently listening to A Court of Mist and Fury, the second one in the ACOTAR series, and it's just helping me get through kind of the meat of it, and then I probably like in the second half I'll pick up the physical copy and read it that way. So my favorites, my ultimate favorites, if you want to get into audiobooks and you want to have a good ass time, my favorite ones are Verity by Colleen Hoover. Let's talk about this one for a second because it's told by 2 points of view and they get 2 different narrators, and those 2 narrators have the most incredible voices that really built the suspense so well and were just perfect. The woman that does the voice of Verity is exactly what you would think Verity would sound like. It was just so perfect casting. And even if you have read Verity, you should, and you want to like re-listen to it, or it's like fall, it's spooky season, it's the perfect spooky book, you will love this audiobook. It is my favorite. I recommend it to everybody because it's such a good book to listen to. The other one I really loved was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden and Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I just thought they were really good, suspenseful, and the narrators were great, and it just, I remember with both of them, I didn't want to stop listening to them. Even when I got home from whatever I was doing and I had to go do something, I like kept listening to it no matter what I was doing when I usually would have stopped another book. So those are my top 3 favorites. My top 3 favorite narrators are Leslie Howard, Amy Landon, who did Verity by Colleen Hoover, and Lauren Allman. I find that their voices are like the most digestible. I'm like very sensitive to sounds and to particular voices, so those 3 narrators are my favorite. So check them out. If they work for you, great. If they don't, no worries. No worries. You gotta find who works for you and just keep going with that. That was my little ultimate guide to audiobooks, mainly fiction audiobooks. And I'd love to hear from you if you have an audiobook that you really love or a narrator that you really love. Pop it down in the comments section because I need more audiobooks and great narrators in my life. And let me know what you think about audiobooks, if you like them, if you don't, and if you have a favorite. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Like this video. If you want more audiobook content, let me know. Stick around for more just book content in general. And I will see you next time. Bye!